Hey guys, this is going to be the first video for one of the advanced designer pattern challenges. And this one right here probably is going to be, I think for me it was personally the hardest one. And it's not just because it repeats a lot. And I had to go through this one quite a few different times. The first way I did it worked, but it was very, very complicated, and I was a little worried about how this would kind of convey in a video. So I've kind of gone through it a few more times, kind of rethinking it. But I kind of want to show you why this one is unusually difficult. So let me kind of zoom in here a little closer to the pattern. Okay, so this is kind of looking at this guy up close. And usually this is the sort of issue with something like this is anytime you're trying to figure out a pattern that's tileable and repeats, usually your kind of go-to is, okay, where is that one section that if I build it properly, I can just replicate over and over again through a tile generator, and it should, look like the reference. Now, the main issue with this one is if you really just kind of look at the pattern, you have to figure out what is that one tile you're trying to create. So what I had kind of done the first time is, and what some of you may be seeing as well, is when you look at this thing, you'll see like, okay, there's a little white circle, all over the place, and then around that, we kind of have this sort of floral pattern. I guess we'll call them petals, but there's like 6 petals that go around each white circle. And it's like that over and over again, right? So there's a circle, bunch of petals, circle, bunch of petals, repeats over and over throughout the entire pattern. Now, by itself, like doing this shape, this isn't difficult. Like we could do that pretty easily. The problem comes up when you try to tile this, because what we're going to see happens here is if we get just this section working, there's going to be an overlap where the petal from this one is going to cross over with the petal from that guy. And unless we get the placement absolutely perfect, that we're going to have blending issues. We might notice the petal from this guy where overlaps with that one gets a little bit too thick because they're just barely off on their settings. They could potentially add together and create thicker colors. There's a bunch of weird overlap problems that could potentially pop up from this guy. So really what I tried to do on my 20th attempt on this particular pattern is I tried to take a step back and think of, all right, if I don't want to do this full shape, let's just kind of think about a column. How could I break this up? So if I kind of look vertically, I'll notice there's a circular piece, and if I only did 3 of these petals, so look at this one circular piece here and those 3 petals, and then below that, if I do this circular piece and those 3 petals, that circular piece and those 3 petals, if you actually repeat that over and over again vertically, we don't have any overlap issues. So what I'm kind of getting at for this is I'm almost trying to get this chunk right here. Each piece would be that circular 3 pieces, circular 3 pieces, over and over and over again, kind of tiling vertically. And then I would do that on this column and basically every other column. And then we can probably tile those together. Now again, like if you want to try doing this your own and kind of coming up with a better way to do it, please have at it. But this is probably the best way I've seen so far. So what I'm going to do is start off by making the petal pattern. Let's at least get that out of the way. Now we have done something like this before, where we've done a waveform. Kind of gives us these really cool little curve shapes. Let's drop down the wave number to 1. Okay, we're going to pull the noise out. Let's pull out all the pattern variation, drop that size down, and I just want to get something relatively close, looking at sort of the shape of that. Like that's already not too far off. And then just to clean up the edge right here, we could bump up the samples to get that slightly smoother. All right, that seems pretty good. Now the next thing we want to do is have this guy sort of go around into a pattern of 6, and we'll eventually kind of cut that off so there's only 3. So to do that, we're going to use the not the shape mapper, the splatter circular. So we're going to have this go into the pattern input on a splatter circular. Now on this node's attributes, we're going to change this to use the image input. So you can see it's using it. Now we know there's going to be 6 of these guys total. So let's change the pattern amount to 6. I need to rotate it. So we're going to come down here just a little bit. Let's look for rotation. Okay, size. Okay, there's rotation. If I spin it, you can see they are rotating. So we're going to do 90 degrees. Okay, perfect. And now we're just going to play around with the offset and radius until we kind of get this looking right. Let's boost that scale up. Let's see here. Bring the radius down a little more. I probably want something. Let me see if I got it. That's actually pretty good. Yeah, now they do come together almost to a point. You'll notice here in the reference there isn't really any visible kind of tip where they connect. It's kind of being covered up by that white circle and then that black dot in the center. So we'll kind of clean this up in a second. The next step is going to be to get this guy sort of clipped off so we don't see all 6 pieces. Maybe for now though, let's try to kind of get that little that circle thing working. Actually, you know what? Yeah, let's try to get this down to 3 first before we even worry about the circle. Now to do this, there are a couple ways to do it. We could just kind of cut off like a shape if we wanted to. Might be easier to do it that way. There also are some like luminance tricks we could probably do to clip it off. Maybe we'll kind of do it through some histogram selection. So I could take this same splatter circular. If I go down here and do luminance by pattern number and boost that up, you'll notice it kind of applies this sort of gradient because it's kind of numbering these sort of pattern numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they're all numbered to get different values with luminance. Now once I kind of have something like this, I can get this thing down to 3 pretty easily because after the splatter circular I can use a histogram select. And I've used this in a couple videos. I'm going to try to get sort of the brighter colors here. So let's just put the position all the way up to white. Crank the contrast up. And now what I need to do is probably drop the range up just a little bit. And eventually we'll see the other one. There it is. See how it popped in? So a little kind of finagling, you'll be able to get it down to 3. Now there's the 3, but the way I kind of want this staggered is because I'm building it vertically. I want to have it so it's this piece and those 3, not the 3 on the top. This one on the top and these 2 on the side. So I need to rotate this. So we're going to click on this. We're going to do a transform. And I already kind of know what the rotation is going to be for this. We have 6 different pedals. I'm just rotating it basically 1 pedal over. I'm kind of shifting it. So 360 degrees divided by 6. Let's try doing 60 degrees. There we go. So now it's spun. Now after that, I could try scaling it up. So we're just going to do a ×2 scale. And then after that, I'm just going to keep boosting it a little more right about there. So it's kind of as big as possible, but not to the point where it's being clipped by the edge of the frame. Alright, so there's part of my puzzle. Now I also need to get that kind of circular piece working. So to do this, if you kind of come back to the reference, we can see this is a darker gray. Let's take this guy, put this in levels. Let's kind of drop the gain down to about halfway, somewhere around there. And let's do a shape as a separate node somewhere up here. We're going to put this to a disk. We'll scale it down quite a bit for right now, maybe 25.25. And this guy's made up of a couple things. It is a circle. We can also do another smaller circle that kind of cuts out the center. That might be easier. So I'm going to take this guy and just see where it needs to lay. So we're going to blend this with this guy. Okay, so that is now covering it. We're going to set this to max. And max just means that it picks the brighter color. So you can see that white is now sort of visually looking like it layers over top. And after that, I can just go back to the shape and bring that down until I think it looks like it's about the right size. Like that's already probably pretty close, maybe just a tiny bit smaller. Okay, we're going to go with that. Now the only thing I'm missing is I need to get that white kind of circle in the center. So I'm going to cut that out. We're going to take the same shape. Let's branch this off in a new transform 2D. Okay, we'll move this over here somewhere. And this one, we're going to say, let's do divided by 2. Now, as soon as I do that, you'll notice, okay, it's repeating. This shouldn't really cause an issue anyway, but there's a chance this top one here might overlap with that pedal and kind of cause it to disappear. So let's just be safe. We're going to go to the Transform 2D's tile mode options, change it to absolute, and say no tiling. Now we're down to this guy. So it's smaller, so what I think we can do is if I take another blend, and we're going to take this as the background, take this as our foreground, and we're going to do a subtraction. Okay, scale's probably just a little off, so we're going to go back to this guy, and I'm kind of looking at the result of the blend, even though I have this selected. We're going to do Command-Shift, click in the corner, and just bring that down a little bit, maybe to right about like there. That feels pretty good. Okay, so I think right now we have our kind of tileable section that should hopefully work. So let's see if this kind of master plan all comes to fruition. Now I want to just kind of build vertical tiles first. We're going to kind of just get one strip set up. So what I'm going to do is take this guy. We are going to put this in a tile generator. So let's do that. Take this tile generator. Let's change this to the image. Okay, you can see, okay, it's clearly tiling. Now what I think I can do here is if I kind of back up, let's just try to count what this generator needs to be set to. Probably what I'm going to do is count, because it doesn't really matter which column. We'll maybe kind of do this one right here. So I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So it looks like vertically there's 15 in a column. So tile generator Y, we're going to set to 15. Okay, they're getting squashed a little bit. We're going to fix that. Now, the next thing is going to be the horizontal tiling. Now, I'm not trying to get every single row. What I'm looking at here is I'm trying to get just the kind of rows that are in line with each other, not this kind of offset one. So let's try to count those properly. Okay, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 across right there. So we're going to have 8 on the X. Now, there we go. I think it's in place. Now, it's not quite big enough. So we're going to do a couple things to fix that. Usually what I do with something like this is I jump down to the scale, and I just kind of boost it up to the point where it kind of looks like they're almost scaled properly, like almost touching. Let's just kind of bring this up right to about there. Now they are scaled too wide. You can kind of see they look almost like they're stretching kind of horizontally. That's going to be this X thing. So let's just kind of scale that in a little bit. You can see we're already kind of getting closer. Now I don't really know where these values are going to be set quite yet. So what I'm going to have to do is get this other chunk that I'm missing connected in here, and then just kind of look at the final results so we can sort of tweak this. But basically you can tell we have half the pattern. If I kind of come back here, that is about half this already finished. So let's try to make a transform. We're just going to take the result of the generator, go to a transform, and for the moment, let's just kind of offset it horizontally a little bit and a little bit vertically because I know it needs to be staggered. I don't have it probably in the right spot, but I'm just going to offset it, and let's immediately connect these together and just see what happens. So we're going to put those two guys there. Let's pick max. Oh, okay, we're not that far off. Now there is a lot of overlap issues going on right here. So what I'm going to do is click on the transform. I'm going to move it kind of a little closer to like where I think it should be, like that. That kind of feels like the white point is at least centered. But I have issues with the pedals. So if I go back to the tile generator, this one here, I'm hoping if we play around with these sort of interstice values, I can kind of get this to look right. Let me try X. Let's bring that. Oh, Okay, that's better. Let me see what Y is doing. I don't know if I want to move that yet. Let me go to the Transform 2D. I'm just going to kind of move this up and down just a little bit here. We're very close. Okay, let me come back to the tile generator. There's some little gap issues. Some of that's probably related to these Y and X values. Let me do a negative on the Y and try to pull this back. Oh, I think we've almost got it. Wow, that looks close. Yeah, I think we did it. Now it's kind of interesting. So it is working, and you can definitely tell this takes a lot of like patience with this guy and kind of going back and forth between the transform and that other tile generator to get like the spacing perfect. Again, that's a big reason why this one is so challenging. There's one small issue that popped up that I completely missed when I did this earlier, but we can fix this. So look what's happening when I zoom in. See how even though when it's blending these together, they are lining up pretty well, but there's this really little small artifact where the petal is kind of poking through right here. We're going to try to fix that. Let me actually shift this over just a tiny bit too. There we go. But I need to still clean that small detail up. You would hardly ever notice it, and I think even if you guys just didn't do this part, it'd be fine. But let's just show you how to fix that. So the issue is related to some of these petals right here kind of getting or poking through into that piece. So probably what we could do is if back here, if I just take like a chunk out of the tips, they shouldn't really appear in those areas. And I bet we can use this little circle right here to kind of subtract those out. I'm kind of guessing on this one. I haven't really even tried this part out, so you're going to see me sort of experiment for just a second. It's probably going to be kind of a long video. But we're going to take that same white circle, and I'm going to try to kind of arrange that into 6 different circles. Very similar to how we did the splatter circular. Let's try it out. Okay, I got splatter circular, and we'll just put that up here. I'm going to take the same little white dot we used before to cut out the center. Put that as our pattern input. We're going to say we want to use 6. Use the image input. Okay, let's scale this up by quite a bit. It's very, very small. This needs to be boosted even more than that. So my scale is cranked up. Let me see if I can actually go above that. Oh, good. So I can actually type in larger than the slider. So that saves me an extra node. All right. Now we want to go up here to probably the radius. Push that out. Let's see if we can get this to work if I blend it with this petal. So I'm kind of hoping that those circles, if I get them in the right spot, will just nip off the tip on those pieces right there. So I don't think I have the position right quite yet. But let's see if we subtract it where... Okay, so they're not far enough out. It's actually kind of cool looking. This would be another interesting pattern to do. Kind of these little holes right there. But if I go back to the splatter circular, if I just keep offsetting that just a little bit, eventually they should hit the tip. Right? Like, I think that's all we have to cut is that tiny bit right there. So if I kind of go farther down and look at it and zoom in, see how it's missing? That's because I trimmed that little section off on the edge of the petals. So I didn't even really expect that. I didn't notice that the last time I did it, but that was kind of a cool little trick to get that section figured out. So there you go. That is Pattern 7. You can tell why this is one of the more advanced ones. It's definitely more difficult than the other guys. But if you guys can get this one working, I do think this would be a really cool pattern for the wallpaper. I kind of like the floral setup of this one. So I'd say give it a shot and see if you guys can figure this one out.